Hey guys, my name is Zack. Today we're going to do a video um, on Gandalf. And obviously, if you watch the channel, you know I'm a big fan of Gandalf. And recently, I just got the Crown Series Gandalf, and I think it's a great figure, especially compared to Asmus's first Gandalf, which is on the left, and my kind of custom Sideshow Asmus Gandalf, which is on the right. And so I wanted to go through some things and get real nerdy and real technical and, you know, kind of share my thoughts on this, share some things that I think Asmus has done really well here, and also share some things that I'm a bit nitpicky on. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Gandalf, and I feel like even though everyone has already reviewed this figure, I feel like I can add a bit to that conversation. So here we go. Now, the first thing that you'll notice, I think, with the Crown series is the rooting in the hair. And as much as I really liked the Sideshow portrait, which is this one, I think a character like Gandalf really needs to have rooted hair. And I think this quality of rooting is as good, in my opinion, as really any rooting job that I've seen with other customizers. And that's nothing against them. I just think Asmus really did a really good job. It did require a bit of futzing, and that was done through a use of a sponge brush and basically just soaking the hair. Before it was like really slicked back and it didn't really look right. But once I was able to futz it, and also using, in addition to water, a little bit of Mark Anthony Strictly Curls. Shout out to Mark Anthony. I was able to get a pretty decent result. The outfit itself also did require quite a bit of futzing. This was super wrinkly out of the box. And there's also kind of a very specific way that he wears his traveling cloak, which is this outer tunic looking thing. And you have to actually drape it over the front and the back of each arm and then fold it onto itself in the back. A lot of times I see people just kind of throw the cloak over. But for the most part, like sometimes he'll wear it like this, where it's over his shoulders, like the figure on the right. But for the most part, it's usually tucked over and under like this. And that's really easy to achieve just with literally just soaking the figure with water or spritzing it with water. And I think Asmus did a really good job with the fabric on the Crown Series Gandalf. I think the weathering is probably as good as their first attempt here, which is this figure here. But I think what really takes the Crown Series over the top, one, the sculpt. So this figure here, I did root myself. The original rooting was in my opinion very poorly done. So I did root that myself. But just some small things like the way that this belt looks, it's like a weird plastic here, and on the Crown Series it's actually like a fabric, which is neat. Things like the shoes, which are really weird and almost like very toy-like here. They look much better, I think, on the Crown Series, in my opinion. I actually prefer, if I'm being completely honest, the base on the first version. I just think it's a very, what's the word? I think you can use it for a lot of different things. So I believe this is supposed to be like the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and that's kind of what most people use it for. That's what I'm obviously using it for here. But because this is actually the Hobbit Gandalf, I've seen a lot of people use it just like for a place for him to sit on, and I think that works great too. There are some key differences in the clothing itself. So you can see here there's like a blue stripe there, and then also on the wrists. That is absent from the Lord of the Rings version. So in the Hobbit, The outfit did have a little bit of blue on it. So that's something to note also. But when you look at the figure itself and the things they come with, let me see if I can grab this staff here. So this is the Mines of Moria staff from the Hobbit Gandalf. So it does come with 3 different staffs. But you can see things like this bead right here. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Like, that's literally just a bead. And it catches light really well, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, it literally has, like, a hole because it's just a bead. I think the sculpting and the painting is great. But the crystal's literally just a bead. And that's super annoying. You get the kind of opening staff from the Fellowship, which you're able to put the pipe in. You also get the bag, which I believe is for tobacco in the movie. And that is missing with the Crown Series staff, which is here. Also missing is the hole for the pipe. I had to actually drill that myself. And that was kind of tedious. So that's the Crown Series staff. You do also get the staff from The Hobbit. So I think this is a really nice looking staff. I think the design is really cool on it. But this is a accessory that you can only get, including with the Sideshow Gandalf, only get through the first Asmus version. Now, Asmus has said that they are going to offer an upgraded head, like you can just purchase the head by itself. But that was quite a few years ago, and I don't think anyone's gotten their head yet, so I would definitely not be super hopeful for that. One thing I do think that the first Asmus did better is the hat. So this is the hat from the first Asmus. It's completely hollow. There's nothing inside of it. This is the hat from the Crown series. Now, there is a magnet, and it's very stiff. They kind of pre-shaped it a bit. I have attempted to cut into it. I need to actually get a new razor blade because mine is pretty dull. But if you look at both of these here, so the Crown has that magnet up top, and this one doesn't really have anything. But I actually prefer how low the hat goes on the first Asmus, if I'm being completely honest. And because you don't have to cut anything, you can actually get that down fairly close to the like how he actually wears it in the movie. So let me see if I can do that for you here. That's not the best look, but if you get some foil, like aluminum foil, you can actually tilt the hat back like that and make it a bit more accurate. But both of these hats are pretty terrible, if I'm being completely honest. In fact, I would go so far to say that the Sideshow hat, which is here, is far and away the best hat of all 3. So this is what that hat looks like on the Sideshow Gandalf portrait. I think it looks fantastic, but I think it looks much better on the Crown Series portrait. I just think that looks fantastic. I do need to add something to the back to kind of keep it up a bit, because obviously that's sculpted and there's really nothing to support it back there, but that hat looks fucking crazy. Now, Asmus did revisit the staff, the Moria staff, and you can see they actually sculpted it much better and used an actual crystal, which I think is really nice. But of all these staffs, I think the thing that surprises me the most is, one, the fact that they forgot the tobacco bag on the opening staff. But if you look at Sideshow's Moria staff, even though it's not super accurate, they actually sculpted a really nice... Let's see if I can get this to focus. They sculpted a really nice little gem in there. And I just think that looks super cool. And not only did they do that... Excuse me while I get the tripod focused, or the camera focused rather. Not only did they do that, Look at this. Now, this was modified just a bit. There was actually 2 tobacco bags, which I've never seen yet. But look at how great the pipe integrates into the staff. I mean, it's seamless, and it's perfect. It fits perfectly. It really tapers to the staff like it should. So this is really nice. I actually really like the staff. Even though compared to the Asmus Crown Series, I think the color is a bit off. Just in general, I think it just has some really cool features. And it's definitely a really good attempt by Sideshow. As far as other kind of nitpicky things, if you look at the Crown Series outfit, you can see that really great weathering. But they really phoned it in on the sweater. They really did. The Sideshow has a really good color to it, though I think it's probably a bit too thick. But the first Asmus sweater just looks really good. So good, in fact, that I'm trying to track down just the sweater by itself. Now, if you look here, this is the Asmus Hobbit Gandalf Glamdering. And let me see if I can get this to focus here. But I actually think this sword, even though it doesn't have the runes on the hilt, it feels much higher quality, in my opinion, than the Crown Series one. And I'll show you what I mean by that. If you look at the Crown Series one, specifically on the edges, it almost looks like it has flashing on it, like from the creation process. I guess like from the, I don't want to call it molding, but from however they do die cast. And even though it has those really cool runes that are pretty much impossible to read, it just, the quality isn't there for me. So if I put them both together, like the coloring and the just the finish, let's see if I can get it to focus. It just seems much better on the first one. So the top is the original and the bottom is the Crown Series. I think the original's much better, to be honest. And I only have the one Crown Series Gandalf, so maybe I just got a really bad sword on mine. That's 100% a possibility. But when I unboxed it, I think that was the thing I liked the least. Some other things to point out. I think the base on the Crown Series, I mentioned it earlier on the Hobbit base, I did like it more, but this base is really weird. It has a lot of stuff that goes into it, which I don't have for the purpose of this review because it's just too much stuff in my opinion. But it's also really unfinished. If you look here, there's like, you can see 3 different levels. You can see the little Lego thing even catches on them. I would have preferred this to be smooth and all one finish on the outer edges. And this nameplate just looks super shitty. It looks terrible. I would much prefer the finish of the Hobbit one, which is like a classy dark brown base, even though it's just plastic with the runes on the side, than this, which, you know, I mean, it looks okay, don't get me wrong, but there's not a lot of foot space once you have all the different accoutrements on there, and it just looks so unpolished. Like, everything about this figure is super polished, except for that. Now, I realize I'm jumping back and forth like crazy here, because I really don't have a script. I do agree with what a lot of people are saying about the eyes. I do think the eyes are a bit too recessed. But if you look at the film, his eyes definitely are sunken in a bit scene to scene. He obviously is much... Ian McKellen's a bit of an older gentleman. So that doesn't strike me as, you know, super terrible. But when you light this figure from the front, which I'm not doing now, I have different lights that are on the figure from the top and the side, the eyes actually do perk up a bit. So I wouldn't say that's the end of the world. I have seen some people paint the eye whites white instead of gray, but I think that's not particularly smart. So I probably wouldn't do that, but that is an option. And I do think overall, I think that's probably the best portrait. One more thing that I think is kind of interesting, if you look at the first belt by Asmus, it looks like really shitty plastic. The blue parts in particular, obviously the metal parts look really terrible too. And if you look at the new Crown Series belt, it looks a little less plasticky, but it's still pretty terrible, if I'm being honest. The little silver details, these would have been nice to be in die cast. They're just like really shitty plastic. And the belt just doesn't really drape that naturally. It's like this plastic is just curled. To be honest, of all the belts, I think I like the Sideshow one the best. It's actually leather. I've painted in the little diamonds and the other runes, but like that belt is amazing. It's all leather, very thick, and it hangs beautifully, in my opinion. And even though these are plastic, they just look better, in my opinion. The glamdering on the Sideshow one is plastic also, but even then, it just looks, I don't know. I just think, like, to me, that sword and that belt is the best of all three of these. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that Sideshow got right on their Gandalf, even for it being such an old figure. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over a few things. To summarize, I really think, I know it sounded very nitpicky, all of this stuff, but I do think the Asmus Crown Gandalf is an amazing figure. It's so good, in fact, that as soon as I opened mine, I immediately went back to the store, or called the store rather, and put in an order for a second one. But it is a figure that does have problems. I think the hat is probably the worst part. I think the base is probably the second worst part, even though it is nice when you take everything off of it. But I do think there are some things that Asmus had done really well in their first version that didn't carry over to this one, specifically the quality of the die-cast sword and the weathering on the hand wraps. I think those are much better on the first Asmus. Yeah, I just think that those are some areas that if you were to make the perfect Gandalf, I think you'd combine some parts of each. But yeah, this is a great figure. I think it's definitely worth it. For the second Gandalf that I'm gonna get, I'm basically gonna transplant the head that comes on that one to this body, and probably the belts, both belts also, because I think they're much better. But Sideshow, I mean, their Gandalf is nothing to sneeze at. Even though I replaced pretty much the full outfit, I think their portrait is really good. I think even their bag, the messenger bag, is really good. And their staffs are excellent. One thing also, if you're really a fan of the scarf from The Hobbit, that does come with the first Asmus. So if you want that, you got to get that guy over there. And of course the wizard staff from the first film. But yeah, if I was to make like a perfect Gandalf, I think it would be the sword, and the belt, or just the belt rather, from the Sideshow one, with the glamdering and sheath from the Hobbit version, put onto this body, with that Hobbit base. So that would be like the perfect Gandalf in my opinion, and the hand wraps from that one. But I mean, I think all three of these, like, they're really solid figures. I don't plan to get rid of the Sideshow custom that I have, even though it's kind of like a half Asmus, half Sideshow mixture. It still is really good, and the hat, I think, is just like this is like classic Gandalf hat. Like, this is fucking incredible. But yeah, I think adding the Sideshow hat to the Crown series, I think, is a huge upgrade. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I know this video was kind of all over the place, but I didn't want to script it, and I also just had 20 minutes of time to come into the office and take a quick video. But hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully it kind of answers some questions or gives you a good idea of the way the figures look. And yeah, if you have any questions, leave them below. I would say if I have to give the Crown out of the box a score out of 10, I'll give it like an 8.5, 9 out of 10. I think with a little bit of futzing, easily a 10 out of 10. It's such a good figure. But yeah, thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video, and subscribe if you're new. Thank you.